Hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Acupuncture is My Life, Eastern Nutrition. Now, today's topic of discussion I found quite interesting, and it was amazing that Chef Kiara brought it up in a conference discussion for this week's topic, and that was the declining sperm count in men and how it is becoming a threat to human survival. And it amazed me as to some of the points she brought up within the discussion. And if you listen to our recent podcasts here at Acupuncture is My Life, a lot of the discussion had to do with the present pandemic and our health. And then also, we have other issues we're faced with, social issues, climate issues, things of that nature. But then this is something that's like going well under the radar, and most people are unaware of it. And I found it very interesting that she brought it to our attention here at Acupuncture is My Life headquarters, which is located in New York City. And this was very interesting. Because she brought up lifestyle factors, like the stresses, and I've spoken about psychological issues as even a result of this pandemic. Different stressors relative to lifestyle factors, even chemicals in our environment, is harming male as well as female reproductive health. And it's to the extent at this point that we have to be concerned about the future and the average human's ability to reproduce. And that is cause for concern. Just because we're not realizing it today doesn't mean tomorrow it won't jump out at us. And it's all is being proactive. Again, like I always say with regard to our health, because studies are shown or are showing that men, let's say in Europe, Australia, North America, New Zealand, the sperm count among these men has dropped as much as 60% from 1972 to 2012. And if it continues at this pace, at least half of the men on these continents will have no sperm by mid 2040s, and the remainder will have extremely low sperm counts. Now that is scary. That's cause for alarm, because as an adult listening to this podcast, quite a few of us would love to have children that'll give us grandchildren that'll someday give us great grandchildren if we're fortunate enough to be alive to see them. And with that being the case, it becomes cause for concern. Because as humans, it's innate. It's part of our way of being to think legacy, whether it's consciously or subconsciously, however you want to look at it. We want to look at the future as to how our genetics continued on. But the sad and scary part is that, chemicals in this global society, how it gets into our water, our foods, the air, and so forth, is interfering with the hormones in our body, which is causing harmful reproductive health outcomes, like I said, in both men and women. And we have to be concerned about that. That is a problem that's carefully skirting under the radar, and it's cause for concern. It is. And it comes back to we are what we eat. And I've spoken about this in past episodes. We're quick to run to fast food places, and that food is not real. And if you've listened to past Acupuncture is My Life Eastern Nutrition episodes, you'd notice my disgust for foods like pizza and so forth and so on. It's not real. What about the chemicals that go into making the dough that makes the pizza? What about the chemicals that go into the fake cheese that's on the pizza? What you would call pepperoni. What is pepperoni? I mean, I'm not well versed in pepperoni or what it is, where it comes from, because I don't eat it. So, I tend to pay attention to things that I ingest, and that's not one of them. And I really don't think that I'm missing out on much, and as well as those that don't ingest it as well. I seriously doubt you're missing out on much. And the different additives that are on top of the pizza that's not real, that they're putting into these ovens at high temperatures, whereas if there's any type of enzymes or life form in these foods, it's dead. By the time it comes out of the oven, it's dead. So you're just putting large amounts of junk in your body, chemically processed foods. Some supermarkets we go into, these foods aren't real. I've seen people make lettuce, make rice from plastic. These foods are not real. And this is why I keep saying you are what you eat. And you are. Garbage in, garbage out. That's a reality. Again, it's all about how the variation of chemicals enter our body, whether it's through what we drink, the air we breathe, the food that we eat. Also when we absorb these chemicals through our skin. I mean, this is just, we have to be conscious of what we eat, what we put on our skin, but that's a whole nother discussion. This is an Eastern nutrition episode. Because we have to think about, genetically engineered foods or processed foods that we eat, and how it's packaged with these types of these plastics that release the chemicals into the foods in which we ultimately ingest. It's another way in which the chemicals get into our bodies and serve as endocrine disrupting chemicals, which interfere with hormones in many, many different ways. Certain chemicals can trick the body into, let's just say in men, certain chemicals can trick the body into thinking that it has a sufficient amount of testosterone, and your body actually doesn't. And when it tricks the body into thinking that, it causes the body to stop producing testosterone, which leads to infertility or even a low sperm count. This is like something to really, really think about, because I'm sure, to some extent, most of us want grandchildren. We want to grow old and sit back and look at grandchildren, because a lot of what we ingest today has a high propensity to damage the essence that exists within us. Because when you damage, let's say, the essence of the foods in which you ingest from the effects of genetic engineering, it affects human vitality, human fertility, our levels of immunity, awareness, how we age, as well as hormonal function. This is just food for thought. This is why it's important to avoid processed foods or genetically engineered foods by eating locally produced, organic, whole foods. That's just one of many ways. Because when you frequent your local farms, you have an idea as to, how the vegetation, how the foods are cared for, even animal products. And some of us don't consume animal products. But, you can visit the farms and you can see how they care for it. And you have, a source that you can return to if, you became ill from something you've eaten from that particular farm. And people will talk about it as well, because the biggest marketing tool out there is word of mouth. You can get one influential person to say something bad about a company, and that can have such a profound effect on it, whether it's a farm, grocery store, whatever. So these local farmers have a reputation to protect. There are places where people go to, and I'm not saying whether I'm in agreement with it or not. I'm on the fence. I'm not going to go there. That's another topic for someone else who's in that industry. But there are people that even go to have live duck, chicken, different animals slaughtered in front of them so they can see how it's being handled and, that particular animal product that they're about to ingest. The point that I'm trying to make is support your local food source. It's important because when you're getting things shipped in on these big trucks from all over the country, from farms that have been compromised to produce genetically engineered foods, that can be a problem. That can be a huge problem, and there's been an increase in visits to endocrinologists, and I have a colleague who's an endocrinologist, and once I got off the phone with Chef Kiara, I was talking to her, and yes, she's aware of it, and she's looking deep into it, and she's well versed in understanding the changes that's going on and how it's playing its part into the low birth rate that the Western countries especially, and it's not exclusive, but I'm just emphasizing, countries in the Western Hemisphere is faced with a low, a constantly decreasing birth count. How much of that is tied to low sperm counts? How much of that is tied to infertility relative to both men and women, based on what we're ingesting, which plays a huge part. You are what you eat. Just like there's a growing number of women, experiencing fibroids. It has to do with what you're putting in your mouth or on your skin. Your skin is like a sponge. It absorbs what you put on it. Think about what you don't put on it, like the sun's rays, and the sun's rays emit like large levels of vitamin D. So now when you put something on your skin, think about that for a second. But I'm not going to go off the deep end regarding topical substances. I want to stick with, what we eat. And Chef Kiara, she mentioned a few things. And this is why more and more people are contacting Acupuncture is My Life, to get Eastern nutrition coaching. And are very appreciative and discussing how they're seeing changes in their life, their mental attitude, their physical well-being. These things, this is very important. Nutritional coaching, Eastern nutrition coaching, it's very important. Super, super important. And, she gave a list of foods that increase sperm count, that are great in dealing with infertility in both men and women. One of them were like black beans, which is interesting because it's nature's warming and it's sweet in flavor, and it benefits the kidneys and the reproductive functions because it builds on the body's yin fluids as well as its blood. Now, in the world of acupuncture, the kidneys are responsible for prenatal chi. The chi that you come into this world with. So that's super important. Kidneys being tied to reproduction. So when men and women come in to the Acupuncture is My Life clinics for fertility treatments, two of the main meridians that they focus on is the kidney meridian as well as the conception vessel. This is very important. But Chef Kiara also stated that asparagus is great for promoting fertility. It's also slightly warming with sort of a bitter and a mildly pungent flavor. But asparagus is great as well. This is why people are contacting Acupuncture is My Life. And this is why even I recommend everyone go to the Google Play Store, download the Acupuncture is My Life app, because there's so much feedback you can get from us here at Acupuncture is My Life regarding your health. And it gives you the ability to engage in free telehealth conferences, which is important. Which is very important. Another is saw palmetto. That's also great for promoting fertility. I mean, I can go on for hours with the information Chef Kiara left for us. It's great for promoting fertility. But again, this is why I say contact Acupuncture is My Life. Follow us on social media under Acupuncture is My Life. And if you're into Twitter, it's Acu_is_my_life. But what happens here is, acupuncture is great. It has a great effect on endocrine responses. I mean, the endocrine system, nervous system. I mean, it's just the how acupuncture can affect the neural, hormonal pathways in the human organism is amazing. This is why I say to you, sit with an acupuncturist. Talk to them. Because there's so much that you can learn. Because here is yet another problem that we're faced with. It's yet another problem in which we're faced with. Low sperm count. Tomorrow I plan to discuss acupuncture and infertility. How you can benefit from acupuncture, but on the Eastern Nutrition episode, it's all about the food. I could sit here for an hour and a half going over different types of foods. But this is why more and more people are contacting Acupuncture is My Life for Eastern Nutrition coaching. And those that have are experiencing the benefits of it. Because, as the generations expire, we're growing further and further away from being connected with nature the way in which we should be. Because I say this in every Eastern Nutrition episode, food is medicine. You can heal yourself with food. And this is where Eastern Nutrition is awesome, because just understanding the importance of the 5 flavors and how these and in what way these flavors can benefit you as well as harm you, can create excesses in your body. So maybe you need to reduce, because too much sweets, which is tied to the spleen and stomach, can create excess phlegm and dampness in the body. So, certain signs and symptoms seen by an acupuncturist would enlighten you to pull back on the sweets. Maybe increase spices to sort of purge, or the salts, or whatever the case may be. This is all part of Eastern Nutrition coaching, and this is why a lot of people are contacting Acupuncture is My Life. But the 5 flavors are super important, because you can be consuming too much of one flavor that's causing a myriad of problems, where just pulling back and increasing in the area of another can balance you out. Eating in accordance with the seasons is super important, because foods, vegetables, and fruits were created by nature to not consume year round, but to eat in accordance with that particular season, to keep the body balanced. Relative to that season, because each season has its representative pathogen, and nature created foods where you can nourish your body to better protect you against the particular pathogen of that particular season. But to consume the vegetable or fruit year round simply because you like the taste of it, you're doing some harm to the body. You just are. When are we supposed to consume avocado? Not year round. No. When are we to consume squash? Not year round. These are the things that people learn through Eastern Nutrition coaching here at Acupuncture is My Life. Because how does what you eat affect the endocrine system? How clean should your foods be? This is all like super important. Because to think that, on several continents by the mid 2040s, What are we in 2021 right now? You're talking a little more than 20 years from now, where some of us will be expecting grandchildren, some will have grandchildren, some will be children and grandchildren. And half of the men in those countries will either not have a sperm count or an extremely low one. I mean, that could be problematic in many, many ways. And the scary part is to think that, are they going to create some type of way to, I don't know. It may sound far-fetched to some, but, create life in some form of artificial intelligence robot, male or female. I don't know. But, the more unnatural we become, the closer as humans we get to extinction. And that's really what's happening. With the farms, these new farms that's being created, where the foods aren't real, but just to simply keep the bugs off of it. So, we can increase our earnings at the risk of what? At the cost of what? Human existence? Lifespan? It's not just about sperm count or fertility, but it's even about people. I mean, I have issues in the Western Hemisphere. The more, I won't even use that term, but I have issues with certain Western countries saying, oh, the average lifespan is 78 years of age. Yeah, okay. Right. But you're seeing so many people die at 40, 50, 60. Whoa, they made it to 74. So to say 78, you can't, if the larger number is beneath 78, or you take the life of people below 78 as a whole, you have to have just as much above 78. And I'm not talking about 79 and 80, but for that to be the average, think about that. For those that are like mathematically inclined and just think along those terms. And then you'll know like how much truth is behind that. When you're working out or you're working with your averages. So it's not to just look at the number. Even think about in your family, how many people live beyond 78? Is it the majority or the minority? Whereas in years past, I mean, let's say if you're someone in your late 40s, your 50s, 60s, think about when you were 6, 7 years of age. How often did your grandparents run to the doctor? Think about that. Relative to people today. Oh my God, like, I gotta be at the doctor like every week. I gotta refill this prescription and that prescription. Insane. During the time when my grandparents were alive, I may have seen my grandfather go to the doctor twice. My grandmother a few more times than that. Whereas you have people today in their 40s, 50s, 60s that they're at the doctor's office twice a week. Whoa. Something is wrong. You are what you eat. something is terribly wrong. And this is why I say over and over, follow Acupuncture is My Life on every social media platform except for Twitter. We're under Acu_is_my_life. Download the Acupuncture is My Life app. Visit acupunctureismylife.com. There's so much to your avail. Health is wealth. Not how much you made in the market or for the sale of these products. And then when you're in the hospital, faced with death, you're concerned, who's going to get my money? Really? Really? Hopefully I gave you enough food for thought. In tomorrow's episode, we'll talk about acupuncture and some of the ways acupuncture is used to treat infertility. But until next time, acupuncture is my life. What's yours?